All right, so let's get the show on the road. I want to introduce Sarah Best. She's the CEO and Chief Strategist of Sarah Best Strategy. She has won 10 awards for her work, including Best Use of Social Media Platform from Travel and Leisure, and she was recently recognized as 40 Under 40 by In Business Magazine. Her work has been featured in Mashable, TechCrunch, Crane Chicago Business, National Geographic Traveler, In Business, Chicago Tribune, and other publications. She was tapped to speak at Social Media Week for the MacArthur Foundation and was selected twice for South by Southwest in 2014 and 2018. She is an alumna of New York University, Rotarian, and a board member of several nonprofits. So we are extremely lucky to have her take time out of her schedule to meet with us today. Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Well, I like to always start out these sessions by saying, we're all smart here, and hopefully we can take some time during the question and answer period to also share things that have worked for your businesses too. So without further ado, I'm going to just take a moment to introduce my team. So we're based, I'm based here in Middleton, and our company is actually 100% remote. That was true before the pandemic. So there are about 10 of us, and we work with all sizes of companies, a lot of nonprofit organizations like the National YMCA and the National Nature Conservancy. We help companies in two different ways. The first way is helping them get stronger at what they do. So this is part of what we do. We do these kinds of speaking engagements, we do coaching, and we review social media programs for other companies. And then the other way that we work with folks is to take work off of their plates if their team needs to be extended for a little bit of time with some professional social media management, search, or website copywriting. So Instagram is a pretty vast topic. I'm sure of all the people who are on the call today, you all have had different levels of experience of Instagram. So the way we're going to focus our discussion is we're going to talk about who's using Instagram and how often are they using it. How does Instagram support the customer sales journey? That part's really important. We're also going to spend some time talking about photography and how do we create images that capture customer attention? And then how do we get our content in front of more customers? So those are the four discussion areas that we're going to focus on today. And then when we get to Q&A, we'll open it up and you can ask about anything related to Instagram. I'm really happy to answer your questions. So we're going to start out with who's using Instagram. So this chart is from the Pew Foundation. They do an internet usage survey every other year. And this is something that you can take a look at. But basically of US adults over the age of 18, 73% are using YouTube, 69% are using Facebook, and 37% are using Instagram, which is also owned by Facebook. And everything else is in the category of 11 to 28%. So one of the really interesting things about Instagram is that even when we think about these sort of newer platforms like Snapchat and TikTok, even though they have a lot of younger adults using them, the share of younger adults on Instagram is larger than the percentage of the same age groups on those other channels because more people are using it. So I really like looking at this to give you some context into what social media networks are most important and where we should prioritize our time. We can also look at these numbers a little bit differently. So these are the number of people who use these platforms actively on a month-to-month basis. So for Instagram, that's 107 million people in the United States. These statistics are often reported during quarterly earnings calls. They're also reported in business publications. So you can see if you compare Instagram to TikTok and Snapchat, TikTok has 37 million monthly active users in the United States, and Snapchat has 46 million monthly active users in the United States. So it's a little bit of a bigger platform. Younger adults, ages 18 to 29, are using Instagram. 67% of them are using Instagram. So even though the overall average is 37%, it's really great at engaging younger audiences as well. And of course, usage has gone up during quarantine. So these are numbers for Facebook and YouTube, but you can kind of see that the curves are pretty similar. So this is pretty early during the pandemic, but you can see that the usage of these platforms has gone up pretty significantly while people have been stuck inside. And then this is a quote from the CTO of Hootsuite saying that Instagram usage has been up 40% during quarantine. This is from the other day. This is Roxanne Gay, who's a really funny essayist. She's like, I'm at the stage of quarantine where Instagram ads are working. This was just from the other week. She says, I also learned how to fold a fitted sheet. So people are really turning to Instagram during this time. It creates some unique opportunities for business during this time when people are checking their phones a lot. So how often do people use Instagram? So 63% of them log on every day. And I think this is a really important thing to keep in mind because if you're only publishing to Instagram as a business once a week, maybe you're missing some opportunities. So it's good to know that people are on there quite a bit, and you might want to take that into account when thinking about how frequently you would like to publish something to Instagram. Everyone always asks me, when should I post? The answer is, are people awake? Because you'll see the engagement is spread pretty cleanly, like across the times when people tend to be awake. However, you'll notice that the engagement is a little bit lower on the weekends and also on Monday mornings, and that the highest engagement is in the back half of the week. I like to call this the Garfield effect. Nobody likes Mondays. Everyone's trying to get sorted out and settled into their work. And so usually by the time you hit the middle of the work week, you might have a little bit more time to take some breaks and to be doing other things. So my advice to you would be don't like hone in specifically on these like really dark blocks, but just think about if you have something important that you want people to do as a result of seeing your content, maybe put that towards the back half of the week. Maybe avoid Sundays and Monday mornings if you want to communicate with your customers. Should you create a business account? So as you know, in Instagram, you're not a business account by default. You have a personal account when you set it up. And my answer to you is yes. One of the major benefits of doing this is that you can, with a social media management tool, you can pre-schedule your Instagram content. So if you are finding it difficult as a business owner to publish things live on an ongoing basis, this could really help you. It also will collect some metrics, but more importantly, again, if you're using a social media management tool, it will let you, that will help you collect more metrics because the built-in tools only capture about a week, I think. It also lets you add business hours, location, and phone number. And that's cool because you'll notice that once you put that stuff in, it also lets people call you, send an email, or get directions to your brick and mortar location. So these are all really good reasons to use the business account. That's something you can set up in the app itself in the settings. There's just a toggle switch that you switch to set that up. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how does Instagram support the customer sales journey? So as you know, sometimes it can take people a while to make a decision to do something. And so the way that we break this down for our clients is it's a funnel, but and we use the shorthand feel, think, do to think about how we should plan our content. So you might be familiar if you think about someone purchasing a product that first they're discovering your brand, they're discovering the product, then they might do some research. So they might look for reviews, they might look for They might compare products against each other. And then do, of course, is like the call to action to actually purchase something. Or if, depending on the type of business you have, it might be to fill out an inquiry form or to sign up to participate in something. And then the sort of bottom is loyalty. So the nice thing is Instagram can support us at every step of this process. This process isn't always linear. It doesn't always happen in the order. People can go back and forth before they make a decision to do something, but I think it's helpful to think about this in this case. So what I want to show you are some examples of how Instagram content can be used to support these different parts of the sales journey. So thinking about the feel part of the sales journey, the discovery part of the sales journey, with companies that sell products, we see a couple of things often. One is just showing us new products. Sometimes that's enough to help us get people to either come into our store or buy something online. The second thing is a lot of lifestyle content and suggestions. So how do you use these products? So here's an example from Cost Plus World Market where they're doing a day date idea, which is like coming up with a cheese plate and something like that. And then another one from Cost Plus World Market where they're showing like how to create a cozy corner at your house with things that you can do curbside pickup for. Now, this, kind of intuitively makes sense, but what do you do if your business doesn't really fall into this sort of category? Well, I wanted to take a look at an example from BMO Harris Bank, and let's take a look and see what that looks like. So this is another feel post.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking forward to what comes next and to help you with whatever your next looks like. Help you make progress and come back even better than before. How do we know it's going to be okay? Because for as long as we've been in business, we've seen what you're capable of. And as always, we've got your back. That's better.
So whatever comes next for you will help you make real financial progress.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking.
So the sort of idea here is heartstrings, right? They're giving us a pep talk. You'll notice the like sort of classic heartstring sort of music in the background. They're also speaking directly to customer needs and concerns, even though those needs and concerns have changed during this crazy time that we're all in. So, so this, again, this sort of content helps people become aware, develop loyalty, and it also helps them know that you've got their needs and desires in mind. And then the other thing that we often think about associated with building awareness or facilitating discovery or promoting good feelings is humor. So this is an example from Microsoft. It's a quote, "You're on mute," because we've all been doing a lot of Zooms. They, of course, have Microsoft Teams. So they're using a little humor and saying, not sure who needs this today, but to connect with their customers and build relationships with them. So it's really about building relationships at this stage. So moving into consideration, our think, some of the things that we associate with this stage in the customer journey are product benefits and features. So if you're me, your Facebook and Instagram ads are all full of treadmills right now. So one of the things that they're doing, because I get these ads all the time, is to promote different features of their products. Another thing is reviews. So sharing customer testimonials is often something that can support people making the decision to want to purchase something. Here's an example from a different type of business. This is from H&R Block. So what they're doing is two things. They are proactively addressing customer questions. So if you get questions over and over again in your email from customers, these are something, instead of just responding to them, you can proactively put out there through posts. So this is a question about what do I need to know? You still have to file. But the other thing that this is doing is putting a face to a name. So it's getting staff in front of people in a very approachable way. And it's also, you can see here's her signature, here's her name, here's her position, here's her experience. So it's promoting them as an experienced, trusted resource. So finally, do is pretty straightforward. It's a call to action. It might be backed with a promotional strategy. So, like the task at hand often is not, well, I should buy something or sign up for something. It's how do I get people to do that now? And so we have a range of promotional strategies that we can employ, sometimes sales, but sometimes not, to get people to do something now. So this is an example from a retailer of, it's got both a 40% off and a free shipping offer on it. And then finally, the loyalty piece of things, I'm going to call out my friend Sarah at Revel Madison. She does a fantastic job of this. One thing that you can do to promote customer loyalty is to listen for the posts that your customers are sharing and reshare that content. Now, these are these two examples on the left. Actually, all of these examples are in Instagram stories. So if someone tags you in a Instagram post, there's a little there's a button that lets you share it to your stories. So and she always adds encouraging stickers and little labels and stuff. And the thing is, what we're really doing here is encouraging positive behaviors. So if someone reaches out to you and leaves a great comment, you should always thank them and follow up with them, because what you're doing is not just acknowledging them, you're also encouraging them to do the same thing again. So if someone takes a picture of their Revel project and Sarah shares it out, then, or someone on her team shares it out, then they're likely going to post a picture of a future project again, right? So you want to think about that in terms of how you can encourage loyalty using Instagram as well. All right, let me do a quick time check so I can see where we're at. So this section, you can actually take yourself off of mute because we're going to be talking about some images, and I would love to have your discussion and participation during this section. So we're going to be talking about what makes a good image. So the first question I like to ask people related to Instagram is just think about books for a second. When we think about books, what are some of the things that pull us into a story? Does anyone have any thoughts about this?
I'm a visual person, so I'm always interested in what the cover looks like. If it's something that draws me in, whether it's tugging at the heartstrings, or in my case, a lot of times kind of like a mystery type thing. So.
Okay, so setting up a mystery, that's definitely something that draws us into a story. Does anyone else have any ideas? What are some of the things we learn about a story when we first start reading it?
The first couple of pages usually sets the tone for the whole book. So the most popular thing for a mystery novel is to start with actually the murder, and then you know exactly how intense this particular book is going to be, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so maybe setting the mood or the tone for the book, or kind of describing an atmosphere.
We also have a chat from Dave at Story Media, overcoming an obstacle.
Yeah.
What are you in pursuit of?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else have any ideas?
I think compelling characters.
Characters, yes.
Tara with Tingle says an image that I can relate to emotionally.
Okay, these are all really great answers. So I wrote some of my answers out to this question. So it introduces characters, it transports you to a place, It offers specific details, like you said, the visual that we can focus in on. It evokes an atmosphere. It entices us to want more. It's also told in chapters. So there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to that story. So how do we think about this in terms of photography? Well, it's easiest to think about it in terms of wedding photography. So when you think about how a photographer tells a story of a wedding or an event, they might have portraits, they might have still lifes, they might have landscapes, they might show something that relates an atmosphere. So this kind of works like introducing characters, specific details we can focus on, transporting us to a place, and evoking a mood or an atmosphere. So these are things we can do in photography as well. And this, of course, comes from art history. So classically in art history, we had a couple of different types of paintings. We had portraits, we had landscapes, we had paintings that evoke a mood or an atmosphere. And we have still lifes that focus in on a detail that we can focus on. So, so this is something that has existed in art history for a very long time. So one tip I have for you with your images is to think about variety. So you might show pictures of the people who work at your company. You might show a detail that helps us focus in. You might show some action that starts to tell a story. You might show you know, you just want to mix things up. So if you look at your Instagram feed in the last like 9 posts that you've done, are all of your pictures portraits? Are all of your pictures product photography? Maybe you can mix it up a little bit. And so it's helpful to understand that we have different tools that we can use to tell a story. So now we're going to look at a series of a few pictures and talk about which image of the pair is most compelling and why is that the case. So I'd love someone to speak up and say, which of these images do you think is more compelling? The one on the left or the one on the right?
I can go. The one on the right I find to be more compelling because it focuses on one person versus several people in a line, and you can see her expression, whereas I can't see anything in the expressions really in the other photo. It's just sharper, clear. She's smiling, which it seems very, what's the word? Natural, what's the word when they use for, to make it look like it's a natural thing?
Oh, candid. Yeah.
Candid, yeah.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great observation. So our eye has a clear point of focus in this picture. We're looking at one face who's in focus, and as you've observed, it's communicating some emotion like as well, which makes it feel sort of warm and cozy, like we can relate to the person in the picture. All right, let's look at another pair of images. These are both from professional dance companies, but which one is more compelling?
I like the one on the right. It just seems to show more energy.
Yeah, and one way that it's doing that is by showing angles, right? So there's some angles in the image that make this feel a little bit more dynamic. All right, how about this one?
Well, it's food, so they both look good to me.
I prefer the one on the right. I think it just, I mean, it just pops more, and the focus is the food.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons why the one on the right is more interesting. One is that it's got some cool composition things happening where there's a lot of circles, right? Another thing is, again, my eye is drawn to a specific point in the photo, which is the pita bread in the basket. And so sometimes collages, when we look at collages, aren't as successful. They don't pop as much because my eye doesn't really know where to go. It communicates information to me, but it doesn't make me excited to eat the food, right? They're slightly different pictures, but this is important to know because everyone likes those collages, but sometimes you just want to hone in on a specific person or detail.
On the tablecloth too, the lace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the textures and colors. All right, great. So here's some tips about what you can do to improve your photos. So one thing I would say is figure out what story you want to tell before you just snap a photo and post it. So you can tell stories over multiple posts. If you're using Instagram stories itself, you can tell stories over multiple components of the story. Take a step closer to your subject. So if things aren't looking quite right, just get closer to it and see how that changes the framing of your photo. Try to focus on an individual subject versus a crowd of people. This can help make your image a little bit more relatable. And you heard me say this a couple of times, but you want to have a clear point of focus in your image. Your eye needs to go to a specific point in the photo. It can't get confused. So that's a good thing to look at. Light is your friend. So, and so are tripods. You can get really affordable tripods for cell phones. Most cell phones today are as good as anything else for taking images. And so you could use natural light, but you can also supplement your light as well. Either with, you can get fancy and get a ring light, but you can also just use a clip light too. Maybe with a translucent piece of paper covering it to diffuse the light a little bit. When I say clip light, I mean the ones from the hardware store with a floodlight bulb. So campaigns, when we think about marketing campaigns, are really just stories told over time. And so if you think that your Instagram maybe isn't working the best that it could, maybe some of that is just taking a step back and thinking, instead of just posting in the moment, actually think out like what the stories are going to be. Take the pictures and then maybe think about it first, and then post the pictures that best support your story. And so, yeah, remember, you don't have to post things live. It's okay to photograph something first, or hire a photographer when we're out of pandemic and we have events and things like that, to edit it and then post it later. It does not have to be live or in the moment. So, and just to give you a few tips and tricks about compositional strategies, in these photographs in this picture, which are all from the Nature Conservancy, there's a rule of thirds, where you have sort of a background, middle ground, and foreground, and the image is cut up into a few different pieces. This isn't exactly the rule of thirds, but you kind of get the idea. There's a few different layers to this photograph. Here's another example of an image having a clear point of focus. Like, you really want to cross that bridge. It really draws you into the picture. Thinking about background and foreground. So you can have something in the background, something in the foreground. Thinking about some close-up pictures. Thinking about action. Thinking about color contrast, so dark and light together. And then here's a few more. You can get creative using reflections. You can put your camera down low or up high. You'll know that from selfies, when people often can't lift their camera up. Depth of field is what we call when something is clear and focused in the foreground, and maybe the background's a little bit blurrier, so your eye goes to one place in the image. And then you can play with shadow and light. Now, you don't have to get this fancy. This is just to give you some ideas to play around with. And if you're like, I'm completely overwhelmed, I do not know how to do any of this, Canva is a really great resource. It's an online tool for people who aren't graphic designers and who want to be able to pull some images together. It lets you save your brand colors and fonts into it, so that you can adapt their templates to make it branded to you. You can drop your logo in. And so they have a lot of different kinds of Instagram templates that you could use. There's a bunch of quotes. So as you'll remember, one of the things that we looked at was a testimonial quote. So there's a lot of templates for that. They have templates for Instagram stories that you can drop your own pictures into, edit the text, or change the fonts. They even have a lot of the things that are kind of trendy on Instagram, which is this or that and get to know me. So it's here to help you extend what you're able to do as well. Canva is free, and I think the paid accounts, which let you save your brand information in there, about $6 a month. Here's some more examples, and that's sort of it. So it's a good resource if you want something besides just photographs to put into your Instagram. So last topic I want to touch on before we open this up for more open discussion is, how do we get our content in front of customers? Another reason that people might feel that their channel isn't working is if they don't have a lot of followers, or if they don't seem to really be connecting with people. So you have a couple of options. One thing you can do is, if you are familiar with boosted posts in Facebook, one thing you might not know is that you can use boosted posts on Facebook and Instagram at the same time, even if you don't have an Instagram account for your business. The nice thing about these boosted posts, or these sponsored Instagram content, is that it adds a shop now button, or whatever kind of button you prefer, like a sign up, book now. It can help you get people from your Instagram post to your website, even without setting up Instagram shopping, for example, where they put the price tags like right in the image. So that's a good way to get in front of people. You can also target those to the people that are like your customers. Another thing is hashtags. So when we think about Facebook as a social media network, it's private by default. So when you set up a social media profile, the only people who see your content are your friends by default. But Twitter and Instagram, they're public by default. So if you post an Instagram post, unless you've told your account to be private or to only show content to certain people, anyone can look at it. The benefit of this is twofold. One is that we can search for things, right? So we can search for things that our customers are doing by searching for our location in the Instagram search box, or searching for hashtags or topics. The other is you can use hashtags then, which basically hashtags just thread conversations on a similar topic together. So for example, there's a hashtag black and white photography. And if you look at the contents of that hashtag, it's all black and white photos. So we can use hashtags to get in front of more people as well. But the tricky thing is that you have to think through is, where is your audience? Now, if you're a business that can work with people nationally, then you can go gangbusters and use all kinds of hashtags to try to connect with people no matter where they're located in the world. If you are a brick and mortar business and you only work locally, the important hashtags to use are local hashtags. So if the chamber has a hashtag, if the school district has a hashtag, if the local tourism office has a hashtag, those are the hashtags that you want to hone in on, because you really want to reach people in a specific community as opposed to people anywhere in the country. And so that's a really important thing to know. And the more that you use hashtags, the more that you can start to get in front of people. Another thing you can do is actually follow hashtags too. Let me see if I have a slide in here about that. Give me one sec to look ahead. If I don't, I will just explain it. I don't. So another thing you can do is, so for example, if you're a garden center, you can follow gardening hashtags so that you see posts by other people that are on that topic. That can help you identify people who are interested in the type of product that you have, but also just give you some ideas of what you can do on Instagram in your area, in your field or your vertical. This is a good tool. So one of the challenges of Instagram is that if you post a link in a caption, it doesn't work, right? So a lot of times you'll see things like, view our link in our bio to learn more. So this tool, which is also pretty low cost, is called Linktree. It can let you list more than one link at once. So even if you have a post that's like a couple posts old or something, people can still find the link that they need to do the thing that you want them to do. So this is a good one to check out too. There's also alternatives to Linktree. So I put a link in here, and you'll get these slides after the talk that you can explore some of the other alternatives as well. Yeah, so one thing that you might want to consider in terms of growing your customer base is consistently using a hashtag for your brand or for your company. You'll see that Revel did this. So Revel DIY or Revel at home. That lets you listen for that hashtag or follow that hashtag and look for posts that your customers are making about your products. You can also do the same thing where, like I said, you can search for a brick and mortar location. So if you're located at a specific place, you can look at photos that were recently posted that were tagged with that location. And I think the other thing I would suggest, and which I've read in my research on Instagram, is just to try to be responsive to your customers. So reshare their content with their permission. Also, address questions, like the things that if they post something that's positive, like it and acknowledge it. Because again, we're trying to reinforce these positive behaviors. So that's sort of my intro advice about how to use Instagram for business. With that, I would like to open the floor up for questions, and also would love to hear your experiences of what with Instagram has worked for your business so far.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
I am just starting to use Instagram for business. We are an association management company, and we have a lot of clients, and very few of them use Instagram at the moment, but we're starting to branch out a little bit. So I guess my question would be, we're currently using Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and when I'm creating images for the social media, they all require different sizes, which is kind of a pain in the butt. And I'm wondering if there are any hacks that you can use so that you just have to create one, and not have to recreate.
Yeah, so Canva has this magic resize feature, so that if you create a graphic in there and you hit magic resize, you can specify that you want it to be resized for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, a postcard, a flyer. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to get you in the right direction where you can kind of just expand things or move things around a bit to make it work. That's a really good hack. And if you're using photography, it's not so much of an issue, right? Because your photographs, you can resize fairly easily, like as well. So, so I think those are two good options.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. So as it relates to the hashtags, one, what's the best way, for example, for me to find what our tourism commission is using for their hashtag, or our school district?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just fishing around on their websites, or how do I find that out?
Look on their Instagram accounts and see what they're using. So I think like some of them are like, I've seen our hashtag travel Wisconsin, hashtag Madison, WI. There's also a bunch related to the campus, like in school. So, so looking at UW accounts could give you some good ideas. And usually what I tell people is keep the hashtags you find in one place. That way you don't have to keep like digging or remembering. Just keep, and then like basically as you're using Instagram, as you see things, like capture them in that note, right? So that you learn over time, like what hashtags there are.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have a couple of questions. So Terry says, I feel Instagram works best for B2C. Are there tips for B2B?
Yeah, I think with B2B, you have to do the same thing, which is map out your customer journey. So how long does your sales cycle look like? If your sales cycle is kind of long, you might have a compelling reason to stay in front of your customer for a long time, or frequently until they make a decision to like purchase. And I think it's sort of the same stuff. So even if you're a B2B business, you might have testimonials that would help people make a decision to work with you. You might be announcing new services. So I think you just have to take the time to map out both the story of how you want to talk about your business and also the story of the journey of your customers into making a sale or making the decision to work with you, and kind of map that out along the feel, think, do line. So for example, for me, I'm a consultant. So my feel is sometimes really positive, actually, no, a lot of it's like team news and things like that. So putting faces to names, also just kind of acknowledging where people are at in this crazy like pandemic, that it's okay to need a little extra help, those kinds of things. Your think in that case would be things like testimonials, and your do would be, you know, sign up for our office hours or reach out to us about XYZ service. So you absolutely can use it for B2B businesses, B2B as well.
Do you have numbers on, I know that usage has increased during the pandemic. Has that translated to sales? Or is it just people bored out of their minds?
Yeah, I think the point is you have a captive audience. So I think it is, it's just branding. A lot of the way the branding works is clarity, consistency, and repetition. So if people are online, they're more receptive to the consistency and repetition parts of things. And I think this is a weird time where people are shifting their brand loyalties too, because certain products are out of stock and they're in different situations where they need to try out different things. Whereas, in traditionally, there'd only be certain points in your life where you would consider switching brands. So I think there's a lot of value to getting in front of your customers right now, consistently, in the places where they're at. So if your customers are on Instagram, you should be there pretty regularly to stay in front of them, even if they're not ready to purchase right at this moment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Going once? Going twice? All right. Well, Sarah, thank you very much. This has been extremely informative. We will send out the slides to everybody who was registered. Just wanted to, again, thank our sponsors, H. Kruger, TDS, and Total Wine. We thoroughly appreciate their support and sponsorship. And wanted to also remind everybody that we have our business boost on bridging the generational divide on August 25th at 8 a.m. And you can register for that at middletonchamber.com. And we will upload the video to YouTube and send around the link to all the attendees. So thank you, Sarah, very, very much. Thanks. Good to see everybody. And we'll see you at Business Boost.
Thank you all for your time today. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you got something out of this.
Yes. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Have a great rest of your day.
You too.